Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Film Study. It's time for this week's Friday morning GM with co-host Vasilis Larikos. Vas, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Ken. I think I'm in the minority, but I feel a little relieved that the Ravens did not overpay for a marginal upgrade at the trade deadline.
You know, you and I have a lot of different views about franchise building, but this trade deadline, I think we both looked at it and said, not only is this a pretty complete Ravens team, it's a team with a lot of needs for 2024 that require draft picks. And all the 2025 draft capital they're going to have from losing free agents isn't going to help next year.
Right. Yes. Just to that point that it is a complete team. You know, I do the daily Ravens news for Baltimore Beatdown, and I kind of take a look at the national media and what they're saying and get their perspective, because sometimes we can get caught in our echo chamber a little bit. And just going across they have the sixth best odds to win the Super Bowl, third best odds to win the conference. Shil Kapadia from The Athletic called them the most complete team in the NFL today. ESPN, when evaluating the trade deadline, said they have no glaring holes.
Sixth best odds to win the Super Bowl that's a market-based price, obviously, in terms of DraftKings probably, or one of the other lines. They actually have the best chance to win the Super Bowl by the DVOA playoff odds report. And their DVOA is tops in the National Football League, as you can imagine. And by a wide margin, actually, they're the best 6-2 team that they've ever recorded, or best 6-2 team ever.
The best.
There was one 5-3 team that was better.
Yes, I think they said, regardless.
2001 Eagles, yep.
Yep, Eagles. Yep. Yeah. Just one more note. The Ringer puts out something called the All-In Index, essentially, and the Ravens after the deadline are still number 7. All that being said, they're a very strong team that already has a lot of the pieces they needed, and if some fans really want to feel like they missed out the opportunity, just pretend that Kyle Van Noy was traded for a 7th round pick.
Yeah, just a lot of interesting things going on here. But that all-in index, just to go back to that for a moment, that's also a measure of how much void money do they have, what's their cap situation and whatnot. And we do know coming into this year, the Ravens cap situation for the next 5 years is fairly dire relative to the National Football League. They're about the 27th best cap situation. They have a huge free agency group leaving, which is part of that cap situation in terms of how Brad Spielberger looked at it in one analysis. So it's a team which is going to have to fill a lot of holes after this year. They'll still have quality players in the midst of that, but they're going to have to fill a lot of holes, and some really good players are free agents, and they won't even get a compensatory pick for all of them. They should get 4 compensatory picks, I think, for the first time in a long time. But I don't expect them to get a compensatory pick for all of the free agents they're going to lose.
Agreed. Just to that point, as far as the Spielberger, if they have the third worst cap situation over the next 3 years, or the fifth, I can't recall exactly the number, but they have the 11th most cap space next year, according to Over the Cap projected. So that means that their outlook in 2015 and 2025 and 2026 is potentially even worse than the 11th least.
That's interesting. The primary thing that is driving a difference between what OTC says and what Spielberger says is going to be the free agents lost, because he's making an evaluation of the free agents lost, and it's a ton of talent.
I thought that number was particularly on total deferred money, essentially. So if they had the third most. But anyway, we don't want to get bogged down in those numbers too much. I will just make the point, looking at the team, the players who started in week 8 out of the 22 on offense and defense, 9 are scheduled to become unrestricted free agents. So we're not talking about all second stringers and third stringers and veteran minimum guys. You have a lot of talent that you're going to have to either find a way to retain or find a way to replace, and you need draft picks to do so.
Right. It's guys like Kevin Zeitler we've kind of even forgotten about in terms of him being a free agent next year. But, that's the case. John Simpson, who's now just starting to come around and just starting to really provide some value to the Ravens, is going to be gone, or he'll be a free agent. So anyway, it is a tough row for this. This offseason is going to be a very busy one for Eric DeCosta. Let's look at if we can at some of the trades the Ravens didn't make, prices that were alleged out there, and there's a lot of crap going around on Twitter about what these prices actually were asked. One comment I have to make about prices that asked and prices that are accepted. If you see prices that are on any place, anything, that's the price something didn't sell for. It's yeah. what we should call an ask price, as opposed to the bid price. And you still have that bid ask spread. Now you work in the mortgage business, you or did for a while anyway. That's certainly something that you could detail for us.
Yes, of course. Bid and ask, as you said, there's a spread between that. The one that really just boggled my mind was the rumor of Josh Jacobs for a second rounder.
It's absurd.
Averaging 3 yards a carry. Sure, you could probably do better in Baltimore. It just speaks to the reliance of that position on the surrounding talent. But for a half a year rental for a running back, when you look at a team that is going into next year needing 2 to 3 offensive line, 2 to 3 wide receivers, at least an edge rusher, 2 to 3 defensive linemen, at least a cornerback. That's just a luxury it doesn't make any sense. It's an unnecessary and unwanted luxury. It's putting a granite countertop on your kitchen cabinets when you have a leak in your subfloor.
That's a good way to put it. It's in terms of what would have been reasonable to go after Jacobs. It's not like he's a terrible player. I'd want Henry more. My price on Henry was a 2025 fourth is probably what I would have given, and a floating fourth at that, because then you basically, because the Ravens will get compensatory picks, they'll have some picks at the bottom of the fourth round, and it'd be one of those, the lowest one, that you'd be giving away for Henry.
Right. And that's the thing. And would he be an upgrade as far as pass protection? Sure. But, there was a week ago, everyone was saying, well, let's find a young, explosive back. Well, they already have one on the roster, and he returned to full practice yesterday. So I just didn't see running back as a need, and I'm really, really happy that they didn't make that move. I think they can – so even in the case of extreme injury, I think they can patch it together with Melvin Gordon and whoever else they can sign off other people's practice squads, Leonard Fournette, Kenyon Drake. The list of Super Bowl champion running backs for the last decade or so is very unimpressive. So it's just, as I said, an non-essential luxury.
Leonard Fournette got signed this week, of course, and so did Drake to the Browns squad. So good names to come up right now. Saquon Barkley, reportedly the price was a little higher on him. Again, that's an ask price, not a bid price. If I'm the Giants, I'm trying to get what I can for Barkley at this trade deadline. Obviously, they felt differently about it, felt like they couldn't give up on it doesn't matter whether they've given up on the season or not. The season has given up on them, and giving up has been thrust upon them. But I don't understand why they wouldn't have traded Barkley at this trade deadline.
I think it's this point, this same concept applies to both Henry and Barkley. They're both sort of face of the franchise type of players, and that's a signal that sometimes teams don't want to give up that player and really signal to their fan base there's no point in showing up for the games the rest of the year, that sort of thing. So, and the other thing, just on those two, I personally was concerned at how they would fit into the locker room and not necessarily the culture, just the chemistry of a team, because those two are big, huge name players that are used to a volume, a high volume of touches in a game, and now you're dropping them into a platoon. And how does Gus feel about that? And how does the rest of the team feel about that? So I really do think they potentially dodged a bullet in the running back market there.
In the case of Henry, he's used to a high volume. I don't think he needs a high volume to be effective. I think basically you need to put a lot of offensive plays on the defense, get them a little tired, and then bring Henry in. I think he might be more effective on a pitch count coming in. Being if something Washington Redskins used to do in the 1980s is have a different back first half and second half. Kind of a novel thing. I don't know that it's been done otherwise. And they would bring in Ricky Irvins in the second half, and they had I think it was actually
Riggins. Was it Riggins?
it might have been Riggins, but I thought there was another guy in the first half who was more, and it might have been Ernest Biner even.
Okay.
For the Redskins at that time. I might have it wrong, but anyway, it might have been Riggins. They might have a first and second half back anyway, and Ricky Irvins was a speed back, and they still had other guys for third down and whatnot. But that I'd never seen that employed before. With Henry, I think you could see a guy who grades up his snaps as the game goes on, and you have a lot of those first half snaps going to an Edwards, Hill, Mitchell, tiring that opposing defense out, hopefully loading up on snap count, which is something the Ravens haven't been able to do this year so far. Mm-hmm. They're consistently losing snap count. And then hopefully in the fourth quarter, you'd have a very effective weapon to bring in with Henry to close out games. And I think that could be very powerful. But that said, Henry, they didn't really have, I don't think the Titans really had any interest in trading him once they saw Will Levis's performance on Sunday. He kind of went off. I think that the Titans consider them still in that AFC South race and still in the wild card race in the AFC. And they're probably going to, give it their all in terms of making it. The guy they should have really traded, though, since they have been committed to Levis right now by his play in that game, they should have gone ahead and traded Tannehill.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. I thought you were going to say Hopkins, but I can see developing Levis with Hopkins and Burks coming back now after injury too. Anyway, just putting a button on it. Glad they didn't make a move at running back. I'm happy with who they have, and I think they can get the job done. It's not going to be an advantage necessarily week to week, but it's going to be good enough. That's not going to win you the games in the playoffs. The passing offense and the defense is. Ken, you're muted.
Happens every show, doesn't it? Anyway, I basically agree with you, and it's something where the three guys they have. The only concern right now is Edwards out with a toe injury yesterday, and we'll get to the injury report in a second, which is some good news certainly on it. Some other news that's kind of scary, and we're waiting kind of on Thursday's injury report to make sure that some of these players return in terms of getting back. But before we get into that, let's talk about the other, I will say, major position of discussion with the Ravens was the edge rusher position. Another case where the Ravens have a lot of players, and the Ravens have, I think, three good players. And I honestly don't care what other people feel like about the combination of Van Moy, Clowney, and Owe. I think they're all above average pass rushers and are giving the Ravens a lot. And so whoever you bring in, even if he's a situational pass rusher, is going to take snaps away from those guys.
Right. Unless you deploy, as we were talking about last show, the race car package. But that was a place where we discussed, and the price tags, well, first of all, Leonard Williams, who we're going to face this week in Seattle, that was a second and a fifth. The price tag on Montez Sweat was a pure second. Mm-hmm. The one that I would have considered making, and I think maybe with the benefit of hindsight, you can say it would have been a smart move, is Chase Young. They San Fran traded a essentially compensatory range third-round pick for a half a year Chase Young with essentially the expectation that they're going to get that back as a deferred compensatory pick unless they slap the franchise tag on him, which I think they probably could because they're not paying a quarterback yet. But that's the one where I think you can look back. But there was 10 trades made, and only one of the trades was something where you would say, "Oh, I could see the benefit for the Ravens doing that." It's there's not much to critique the cost of there.
I agree. There is one other trade that I kind of liked for the acquirer, and that's Donovan Peoples-Jones to the Lions for a sixth. Mm-hmm. That's a trade I would have probably made as well. There's no way the Browns are going to trade him in the division, by the way. Right.
With the busy fall season already in swing, you might be looking for wholesome, convenient meals for jam-packed days. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help you fuel up for breakfast, lunch, and dinner with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle. Guys, I've shared moving. I was using this for all my meals. Now I'm working from home. Guess what? Microwaves in the other room. I'm using this for all my meals. Factor is how I get through my lunch day every day. But they've got breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I haven't tried the breakfast ones yet, but why not? I think I might add that to my next order. But I love them for lunch. Plus, They've got new autumn fall flavors out right now for limited time, featuring seasonal veggies like cranberry, pecan chicken, and apple Dijon pork chops. And again, just like everything else, they're ready in just 2 minutes. They'll satisfy your fall cravings during this busy season without the hassle. So go ahead and level up with Gourmet Plus options as well, prepared to perfection by chefs and ready to eat in record time. Treat yourself to upscale meals with premium ingredients like broccoli, leeks, truffle butter, and asparagus. Head to factormeals.com/Ravens50 and use the code Ravens50 to get 50% off. That's code Ravens50 at factormeals.com/Ravens50 to get 50% off your Factor meal today. Aaron Rodgers' season is officially over, but yours has just begun at MyBookie. NFL, college ball, and a brand new cash-out system gives you options to bet and win all season long. First 2 legs of your parlay hit, cash out early and place another bet, or let it ride for a chance at an even bigger payday. Join us at MyBookie for an entire season filled with daily odd boost, same-game parlays, and huge prize pool contests. Right now, MyBookie has a no-strings-attached cash bonus that lets you deposit and withdraw quick. Use the promo code RAVENS on your first deposit of $50 or more, and you can receive up to $200 in cash instantly credited to your MyBookie account. That's promo code RAVENS to claim your cash bonus now. You can bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie.
Boomer bust player coming into this year, he had 10.0 yards per target career, which that's a hallowed mark for receivers who can get there. This year, he's down to 5.4 yards per target. So they don't know exactly who he is, I think is the thing. But he's a player I think has a good chance to rebound in Detroit.
Yeah, I've liked DPJ for a couple years now, and I think it'll be an upgrade over Khalif Raymond, sort of using that same punt return man and deep threat, but a little bit better version.
Yeah. All right, and I think I'm in agreement on Chase Young is that he was a player that, I really would not want to give up a 3rd-round pick, but you might have to. Or maybe you try and come up with compensation from 2025 that is as attractive, but not a not a 3 anymore. And then you're really talking about paying more. So I don't know. I don't think the Ravens ought to do that either, honestly. Yeah. So yeah.
I mean, maybe you could have given somebody back, Tavius Robinson or somebody like that. There's ways to make it work. You could trade a future pick to recoup the 3rd from this. You could trade a 2nd from 2025 to recoup the 2024 3rd. I mean, there's a lot of different permutations. But I do think that would have been just for a 1-year deferral on the pick for 8 games of one of the better pass rushers in the league right now. That could have been a move worthwhile.
It's good. Certainly could have been. I don't think Young is guaranteed 3rd, by the way. I think that's kind of a little bit of a stretch for him. And with his injury history, we're already seeing that Sweat was the hotter property than Young. So it's good possibility that's the way the contracts work out as well, moving forward.
That's a good point. His knee issue, missed almost 2 years with the same knee. It could be a regenerative or, an issue that prevents him from getting that big payday because almost like a Pernell McPhee.
All right. Well, probably the weirdest trade of the day was the Bears. I do not understand the move at all. In terms of making the big trade for Montez Sweat and giving up a 2nd-round pick in a year where for a rental in a year where they have no chance to make the playoffs. I don't think any realistic chance. They're 2-6, right?
Yeah. And Fields is out. Yeah.
So their chance to make the playoffs is non-existent. And then we're going to go into next year. Sweat will be a free agent. Now they do have 10 weeks or however long it is until March to sign him. I guess it's more like 12 and a half, 14 weeks or maybe, but they have all that time to sign him. And it's an advantage, maybe in the same sense it was for the Ravens with Roquan last year. But then if you look at it again, I'm just reminded that the teams that consistently draft well, and the Ravens have been one of these, No matter what anybody tells you about all the fourth round picks they've wasted or blah, 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 blah. Because you heard a lot about this week.
Yeah.
The Ravens have been consistently a good drafting team, and they are consistently have a class of free agents heading out the door that is more than they can sign under their cap space. And they just have to go through these heartbreaking decisions. If you're the Chicago Bears, you don't have that same problem.
Most cap space in the league, right? Or one of them.
Yeah, you don't have enough good players to sign of your own. So you play a premium.
Like Jalen Johnson, who's developed into one of the better corners we talked about last week, who's a guy they could pay. There's no advantage necessarily to having the guy Laramie Tunsil held Houston over the barrel after they traded, what was that, 3 first-round picks for him?
Yep. Because
he knew, what are they going to do? You have to, and he got the highest contract offensive tackle. The other point I'd like to make, I don't understand why a losing team would want to add a player to help them win when they have no chance of making the playoffs. Why not lose and take the better draft pick?
Yeah.
And take the better schedule going forward next year. I mean, I think there's a way to use the parity model of the NFL to your advantage. It doesn't make sense on any level. It really doesn't.
Yeah. I completely agree. I can sort of understand. I can definitely understand not trading Henry or Barkley because you don't want to send the wrong message to your season ticket holders. And it's not just don't bother to show up for the games the rest of the year. It's don't bother renewing your season tickets.
Right.
We don't give a crap about winning when we're gonna try and get the money we can. And you know what? In the future, we're gonna play the roller coaster game whenever we fucking feel like it because your guys, your needs as season ticket holders come second to our needs to run the team, and that's obviously something that no season ticket holder wants to hear.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing if you have a bright future and it's you kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. I think Philly, tanked the game, but it's a whole other aspect when you're Tennessee kind of stuck on the hamster wheel of mediocrity in a way. So, that's the way I see it.
Good jargon there. The hamster wheel of mediocrity. All right. So we'll talk a little bit about the Ravens injury report here today. And I got to bring this thing up here. Actually, it's from yesterday, from Wednesday. We don't have today's yet. But Ravens had an extensive injury list, including a couple people returning. And those are good news. Keaton Mitchell back practicing full from his hamstring. Daryl Worley, IR, DTR, also full. Does not mean he'll necessarily be back this week, but I think there's a pretty good chance since the Ravens are short at safety. And then Marcus Williams returned on a limited basis.
Yeah, so I expect Worley to take over the DeAndre Houston Carson role. Maybe not this week, but next week because he was lost off the P squad. And Marcus Williams, they had some clips. I don't know if you saw him, Ken, but he was tackling a bag into a mat, and he was using both of his arms. So that was good to see. I mean, the Ravens had a roster crunch. Keaton Mitchell is now practicing fully again. And that's just another reason why, sitting tight at the trade deadline probably made some sense because who are you going to push off the roster? I know they've been carrying Joshua Johnson, the third quarterback, all year, and that's one spot you could potentially take. But you're running out of spots pretty soon with players coming back and not a whole lot of players that you want to lose.
Yeah, and even if injuries were to give you room on the roster, other places, you also have game day activation issues. So, I think it's already possible with returns on the edge that we're going to see Tavius Robinson start to get some deactivations the rest of the year. And they have other players who are in the same point. They have already probably the best inactive lineman in the entire NFL in a player like Sam Mustipher. And he's had a couple inactive. In fact, he started the year on the practice squad, but he's definitely a
2 in a row.
Yeah, a quality lineman.
Yeah, he's been inactive the last 2 in a row. They've been shuffling through Kevon Seymour 1 week up, and then Jalen Armour-Davis up and down, 1 week up, 1 week down, and it's just getting tight. And they have a lot of good players. It's a good problem to have for sure. You have quarterbacks, starting caliber quarterbacks who aren't even getting a rep on defense. A pair of them. That's a good place to be in. Yeah,
it is, and it can prevent you from having a player like Armour-Davis active when he really hasn't earned reps at corner. Also, so that at least you're keeping the end of your depth chart is still contributing to special teams and contributing to defense. That's a good thing. So, But now 5 injuries we have to talk about, and some of these are really serious. And I'll go through kind of in order. No, I won't even try and do that. Odell Beckham, shoulder injury, did not practice on Wednesday. Don't know if that's serious or not because I didn't see it happen in the game.
So he took that big shot from Buda Baker, and I think went into the locker room at one point, and he did return to the game. So usually when you do return to the game, you're okay. So hopefully that's just a rest day.
Okay, so rest day, and it didn't occur or get re-aggravated on the long DPI play where he fell in the end zone. He got up and he was gesticulating. Didn't seem like his shoulder was hurt from the way he was, jumping around, angry at the official or maybe angry at the opponent for DPIing when he could have had a touchdown.
Right. Remains to be seen. Hopefully we'll get good news there, at least a limited session on Thursday.
All right, here's one that concerns me. Running back Gus Edwards, toe DNP. So whenever I see toe, I think probably turf toe for a running back. That can be a lingering injury.
Yes, that was concerning too. It was a little surprising because there was media availability yesterday and he was made available. And he said he enjoyed having a heavy workload last week and hopes to have a heavy workload again against Seattle. So from the words out of his mouth, it sounds maybe not so concerning. But, definitely don't like foot injuries for any of your players.
Yeah. All right. Now, it gets more serious probably from there. Odafe Owe, ankle, knee, DNP. Now, Owe also left the game, also returned. And honestly, I thought played pretty well in the game. Obviously, he missed the sack on the which was unfortunate. But he otherwise, I thought, got a decent amount of pressure in the game, looked pretty good as a pass rusher. Seems like he's ready to start making contributions.
Yeah, I would. This is speculation, but I think that is still giving him rest coming off the high ankle sprain. That was listed as the same injury when he was first working his way back, knee/ankle, sort of covering both areas of the high ankle sprain. So hopefully he's also hitting the field, hitting the bags on Thursdays.
All right. And we see both offensive tackles, Morgan Moses, shoulder DNP, and Ronnie Stanley now shoulder DNP, not ankle, shoulder DNP. And that is the first time I've seen the shoulder designation for Stanley, who finished the game. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's a little bit of a concern. Obviously, shoulder injury is a very big deal for any offensive line position, for any position period. But if you have any kind of start to have any kind of a labrum issue or rotator cuff injury, those things are very serious for linemen that keep them out for an extended period. In the case of Moses, I'm probably a little more concerned. And the reason is he didn't finish the game against the Cardinals. He missed the last drive, and McCary was in there and blocked very well on that drive, by the way. But Moses, they would have really liked to have had him in there as a run blocker on that final drive.
Yeah, that caught my eye as well. I don't remember who, but someone asked John Harbaugh after the game, and he made it sound like it was not injury related. And he said, hey, we have a starting caliber lineman, Patrick McCary here. Let's see what he can do. And that raised eyebrows, especially when you don't finish the game. And now on the injury report again with the shoulder injury, which was the previous injury earlier in the season. That is the one probably out of the 5 that I'm most concerned about.
Okay. All right. So hopefully some of these things clean up. We're recording this at about 2:00 on Thursday. The injury report isn't out for the day, and so we don't have that to work with yet. But I'll be definitely looking for clues for what's happening in the Thursday. We got to at least see some of these DNPs come back to limited today.
Yep. Yeah. So I think at this point of the this point of the in-season, Eric DeCosta is just continuing to line up those contingency plans that are available on the street, Namakatsu, for example. And then I think probably in a couple of weeks, next week, maybe you start looking at the future needs, maybe in-season extensions. 3 of the 6, correct me if I'm wrong, but 3 of the 6 cornerstone contracts on the roster all got done in season, right? Stanley, Roquan for sure, and I believe Marlon also got done in September, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So this could be a time where some of these players can be retained and start looking forward too.
That sounds like what we ought to be doing the next couple of shows here. Then for the first one, I'm thinking let's talk about 23 to 24 in terms of transition out, transition in, and what we're looking forward to. But anyway, that'll be a fun couple of weeks of doing the show with you, Vas, as it always is. Why don't you tell folks where you can where they can read your stuff online?
Yes, I am at Twitter at Vasilis Beatdown, Vasilis Beatdown. I am an author and editor for the Baltimore Beatdown blog, and I have a podcast called At the Ravens Way Pod. We're going to have Alec Poulianis on tonight. I guess this won't be released until after, but yes, looking forward to it.
All right, Alec, a friend of the show as well. Always a pleasure doing this with you. Other folks out there, if you'd like to be on a Film Study short, hit me up. DMs are always open on Twitter. Love to talk to you, and I'll get back to you very quickly. Try and keep that kernel of an idea small so we can fit it in a true short format in under 30 minutes. For Vas Laricos, this is Ken McCusick saying goodbye, and we'll talk to you next week on Friday Morning GM.